There's something that Gen X retirees are doing right now that baby boomers wouldn't be caught dead doing. It's not reckless, and I don't think it's a fad. It's a trend that I'm watching unfold in my office, and it's saving Gen X super savers around $1,000 a month in retirement. I'll show you exactly what it is, but it won't really make sense until you first understand something even bigger that's happening. The way that Gen X is retiring is fundamentally different from the way that their parents retired. If you're new to the channel, my name is Benjamin Brandt. I've been a financial advisor for almost 20 years, and I want to help make your retirement even better. As you might imagine, I have conversations with a few dozen retirees every month, and I have for the better part of 2 decades. And those conversations have started to form some pretty interesting patterns as baby boomers have largely all retired. The youngest baby boomer is, I believe, 62 this year, and I'm primarily meeting with older Gen X soon-to-be retirees in their late 50s and early 60s. And the biggest pattern that I'm seeing today is that baby boomers retired forward and Gen X is retiring backward. And what that means is when a baby boomer sits across from me over Zoom and I ask them, what are you retiring to? Why did you save up all this money? What are your retirement plans? I hear a very specific kind of answer. The answers are something along the lines of, I can't wait to retire so I can finally spend some real time in my garden. I can't wait to retire because I want to golf 3 days a week. I want to retire so I can build cabinets in my garage. Now, what each of these ideas share is that every single one of them is not a thing that they have really done yet. It's a thing they always wish they had time for when they were sitting in their office. So they retire forward towards the activity that they never got to do and will finally have time for. And listen, this is no slight on baby boomers, no shade intended. They are accounting for something very difficult and something I think pretty unique to their generation, which I'll shed some light on in a moment. But I want you to notice the structure of their decision. If you approach retirement that way, you are guessing at what you might like in retirement rather than operating on known data, and that can present a problem. Returning forward is a bet. It's a guess. You're guessing that the thing that you daydreamed about at your desk will still feel good on a random Tuesday morning in retirement when you've just got nothing on the calendar. Now, sometimes that guess is right, but sometimes I get that phone call that says, Ben, I'm kind of sick of golf. Is that really all there is to do in retirement? And this is what Gen X is doing differently. And I didn't see it coming, and I don't think I've heard anybody else on YouTube talk about this observation. Baby boomers look forward and make a guess, whereas Gen X is going backwards with known information. Gen X is retiring back to the thing they used to love when they were younger. I have a client that's getting the band back together, and I don't mean that as a figure of speech. I mean an actual band with instruments and amplifiers and a van and a set list and all those sort of things. In fact, that exact retirement goal has come up more than once or twice in my office. I have another client who's getting back into skateboarding in retirement. I have another one that's dusting off his Magic the Gathering cards and hosting tournaments. In fact, I think we're going to see a real resurgence of the games and hobbies that this generation grew up with in the 80s and 90s. In fact, maybe I should figure out a way to invest in that. Because here's what all these things have in common. They already know that they love it. They're not guessing. They've got decades of literal evidence. They played in a band at 19 and it really lit them up. They skateboarded at 15 and they loved it. It's not just nostalgia, it's real actionable data. Looking forward is a bet, looking backwards is evidence. And I think that's a fundamentally better way to design a retirement. So how do you find your own evidence? Well, there's an exercise that I use with my clients, and I wrote about it in my book. It's called $500 in a Time Machine. My book is called Retirement Starts Today. And here's how it works. I hand you $500 and we hop into the DeLorean and we set the dial back to your 13th birthday. Now, you've got to spend the money on yourself and you've got to spend it by the end of the day. Those are the only real rules. Now, what I should point out is that age 13 was an intentional choice because at 13, you're old enough to understand the value of a dollar. You've got some judgment and you can weigh your options, but you're still young enough to have a vivid imagination because, 30 years in corporate America hasn't crushed your soul yet. Now, at 13, nobody really tells you what a responsible adult is supposed to want and what a foolish purchase might look like. In fact, for this experiment, we do want foolish. So what do you buy? Well, maybe it's a mountain bike. Maybe it's a drum kit, maybe it's a Dungeon Master guide and some 12-sided dice. Recently, I heard about National Geographic magazines. This retiree loved learning about places that she'd never been, and then that became a desire to explore the planet in retirement. So what would you buy? Put your answers in the comments. I read every single comment, and we've used this experiment in the past with other videos, and some of you have some very creative answers. But the answer to the $500 and a time machine isn't just like a fun icebreaker. Your answer is a very real retirement clue, and it's a thread that we can start to pull on. Once you have an idea, now we can start to make small investments, right? A little bit of time, a little bit of money, a little bit of energy, and we go and gather data. If you still love that thing, whatever it is that you did when you were 13, well, we allocate more time, money, and energy. If we don't like that thing anymore, not a problem. We just cross it off and move on. Both of those are wins, and both of those are real, accurate, actionable information. By the way, if you like this kind of thinking, I write a newsletter called This Week in Retirement. or I find the best stuff on the internet and I send it your way. It's free and the link is in the description. And I still owe you that thing that Gen X is doing that a boomer wouldn't be caught dead doing, and that is coming up, but we still need more context. So why is Gen X approaching retirement from a different direction from their baby boomer friends and relatives? Well, it's because they have the benefit of going second. So let me walk you through a couple of generations because I think history actually explains it pretty well. So starting with the silent generation, who had something that Gen X will never have, they had strong pensions. They had very strong certainty in their monthly income, but they didn't have much certainty at all in the length of their retirement. Retirement for many members of the silent generation was to retire, then take a cruise, and then die. So the money was more predictable, but the timeline was anything but predictable. Then came the baby boomers. And the boomers honestly were the first generation to get that full spectrum retirement. Many of them had pensions and portfolios and a retirement that could last maybe 20 or 30 years. In some cases, in fact, some people have now spent more time in retirement than they spent in total in the workforce. But nobody handed them a playbook because there just wasn't a playbook that existed. Boomers were building the plane in flight and they were figuring it out in real time, essentially as retirement pioneers. And then that brings us to Gen X. Gen X is the first American generation to essentially retire without a pension at all. In fact, it's estimated only about 14% of Gen Xers are going to have a pension. Gen Xers came of age right at the time when employers are shutting down defined benefit plans and then handing everybody a 401k and saying, good luck. So the money is entirely on them and thus the margin of error is pretty thin. But they did get one enormous advantage that nobody had before them. They got to watch their boomer parents and their boomer coworkers retire. And some of those retirements went beautifully and some had, kind of mixed results. Generation X is the first generation with a full case study sitting right there in front of them. So they are being much more deliberate because they went second and they are learning in real time from the successes and failures from the previous generation. And I think this deliberateness really shows up somewhere else. It shows up in how and where Gen X chooses to retire. For about 80 years, the American retirement system was pretty straightforward. You worked in Ohio or New Jersey or Minnesota, and at some point you decided you wanted to retire your snowblower and you moved one or two places, Florida or Arizona. And now that playbook is changing. In 2025, Florida had more retirees move in than any other state, almost 46,000 people, but it had almost the same amount, 45,000 move out. In fact, the net gain for the entire state of Florida was 815 people. And there's actually a name for this phenomenon. They're called halfbacks. So the classic halfback moved from the Northeast to Florida, decided it wasn't really for them after a few years, and they moved halfway back north. They landed in a bend that runs from Virginia down through eastern Tennessee, the western Carolinas, and into northern Georgia. And the usual suspects are Asheville and Greenville, Chattanooga, Knoxville, Athens, kind of in that zone. In fact, South Carolina led the entire country in net retiree migration last year. But here's what I'm seeing in my office. And again, I haven't really heard anybody comment about this yet. Now, Gen X is skipping that Florida step entirely. They watch their parents do the round trip while they're just going right to the halfback zone, Gen X says. And the reason is different too. It's not just about hurricanes and insurance premiums. It's the fact that their kids are still up in the Midwest or the Northeast and their parents are down in Scottsdale or Tampa. So they're splitting the difference halfway to each. And their activities are similar. Boomers went where they could golf. Gen X is going where they can hike and mountain bike and get outside. Gen X is pursuing active recreation instead of active leisure, which is really just that backwards thing all over again, just showing up in a different form. Now, here's what I promised you at the beginning of the video, the thing that Gen X is doing that a baby boomer just wouldn't be caught dead doing, and that is they're renting their homes in retirement. Not for 6 months, not as some sort of a stopgap, but as the long-term plan. And now I really want you to understand how big of a shift this is. 10 years ago, if I would have suggested to a boomer that they rent in retirement, I would have been chased out of town with torches and pitchforks. Renting, from a generational standpoint, is a 4-letter word. It meant if you were a renter, you had failed in some way and you were lighting money on fire. I had to argue very hard for renting. Now compare that to today where many of my Gen X clients bring it up before I even have a chance to. And the numbers really back them up. Between 2013 and 2023, the number of renters aged 65 and older grew by 2.4 million people, almost 30%, the biggest jump of any age group in the country. Meanwhile, every single age group under 55 got smaller as renters. Older Americans are the fastest group of renters in the United States. And I think that's because a bunch of people just did the math. So let's you and I do the math together. And I really want this piece to land. When you're working and you make a mortgage payment, you are converting your earned income from your job into home equity. You're taking a paycheck and you're just gradually over time turning it into a house. And that's a pretty good trade. That's how a lot of you built your net worth. But in retirement, you don't have income in the same way anymore. Your income comes, of course, from your portfolio. So when you buy a house in retirement and you make that mortgage payment, you're converting your portfolio into equity rather than your income into equity. Same house, just totally different money movement. I'm not saying that owning a home or a second home in retirement is wrong, but that decision to own or rent in retirement is just a very different decision than you made when you were 35 and still working. So I'll put some real numbers on it. And again, granted, this is napkin math. You're going to want to run your information by your own advisor because your situation is really different. But here's an actual house. I'll put it on the screen. $725,000, beautiful home, right in the halfback zone of Greenville, South Carolina. Zillow's estimated payment to own this is about $4,855 per month. And of course, that includes principal, interest, property taxes, and insurance. And then over here, it assumes you put 20% down on this house. That's $145,000. While you were working, of course, a down payment came out of your income. Now in retirement, that $145,000 comes out of your portfolio, plus, of course, any associated taxes. Now let's scroll down a bit more here and let's rent this same house instead. And Zillow's rent estimate on this property is about $3,284 a month. So looking at these two numbers side by side, roughly $4,800 to own, roughly $3,300 per month to rent. That's around $1,500 per month in monthly savings. Plus, you get to keep that $145,000 down payment in your portfolio where it keeps growing. Of course, the obvious pushback is, yes, the buyer is building equity, which is true. So let's attempt to look at these numbers side by side. Now, there's a lot of unknowns and variables here that we don't know about, but I think we can establish kind of a range. So if we look at the same house, the buyer puts the money down, pays the mortgage, and eventually sells the house, whereas the renter gets to keep that down payment invested and then gets to use that extra $1,000 or $2,000 a month in service to their retirement goals or keeps in their portfolio, whatever their preference is. So let's look at who's ahead. After 5 years, the renter is ahead by about $33,000. After 7 years, the renter is still ahead, but by a slighter margin, about $13,000. And somewhere in the year 8 to 10 range, it's basically a wash. Beyond that, the buyer really starts to pull ahead. If we go out 15 years, the buyer is ahead by well over $100,000. So I think that's your range. If you're going to be in that house for 7 years or less, I think renting is really always the winner. Right around that 10-year mark, it's basically a coin flip. And once we extend much past 10 or 15 years, the case for buying gets a lot stronger. But here's the tiebreaker when our dates are close. The cost and friction of selling your house, because selling a house can be very expensive. We've got commissions and closing costs, maybe repairs, maybe staging, the actual cost of moving. It can run anywhere from 8 to 10% of the sale price. So if we look at the $725,000 house, we could call that $65,000 just to get back out of the house. If we are having an unknown timeline and the numbers are anywhere close, I think renting is the clear favorite in this situation. And now let's put these two ideas together because that's kind of the whole point. The halfback move is temporary by its very nature. You moved specifically there because you wanted to be halfway between your kids and your parents, but your kids are going to move again, right? Jobs change from time to time. Grandkids show up and you might want to be closer to them. And unfortunately, eventually your parents aren't going to be in Tampa anymore. The entire reason that you chose that specific town has an expiration date. We just don't know exactly what that date is. It's an uncertain time horizon. And you're not settling by renting. You're just refusing to make a $65,000 bet for a time that we don't really get to control. So renting keeps you more flexible. It keeps more monthly cash flow available for fun stuff. And it leaves you more opportunities to be right if you do need to move again for the kids or for the parents or what have you. Not to mention, hey, when the roof leaks, not my problem. Water heater blows up, not my problem, right? Someone else gets to fix it. You want to go to Europe for 6 weeks? You just lock the door and you leave. And when life changes, and it will change at some point, you're not having to stage the house and hire a realtor and praying that the market's cooperative. You just simply, hand the keys back if you're a renter. Now, I'm not anti-home ownership. I want to be very clear about that. If you truly know that you're going to be staying somewhere for the next 15 or 20 years, buy the house. A fixed mortgage is a fantastic inflation hedge, especially if you get a low rate. If you're a renter, of course, the rent is going to go up every single year versus being an owner, your principal and interest are not. Granted, taxes and insurance are probably going to go up every year. So let's bring it all the way back around here. Baby boomers retired forward toward a thing that they'd never really done before, and a lot of them made it work. And I really admire them for that because they were first and nobody gave them a map. Gen X is now retiring backwards towards a thing that they already know that they love, and they're doing it in places that fit their active lifestyle, and they're staying flexible enough to move when life moves. Forward is a bet, backwards is evidence. And here's the thing, you don't have to be Gen X to do this. If you're 68 years old and you're sick of golf, well, we can still implement parts of this plan today. If you want help figuring out what your version of this is or anything else you can dream up and whether or not your plan can support it, our Retire Ready Blueprint might be the thing that you're looking for. Check out the link in the description. Thanks for watching.